Okay. Kathryn, can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Okay, so you can just share your screen.
Okay.
And go on. But this is Kathryn Chiarelli. We're really excited to have her on as a presenter. She works for Lutron. She manages all the Lutron shade business for Lutron across North America. So she knows a couple things about shades. So we're excited to have her on. I'll turn it over to her and let her get going.
That I do know a couple things about shades. So I've got the chat box open, guys. If you have questions, feel free to type any questions here. I'll send one so you guys can find that box. And then let's get started. So I wanted to introduce myself real fast. As James said, I work for Lutron. I'm a residential shade sales leader. So I'm responsible for making sure that you guys have the tools you need in order to be successful selling our shading solutions. My background is in structural engineering. I've been at Lutron for 8 years now. I've worked on both our Northeast residential sales team and also our New York City specification team. So what that meant is that I spent most of my time talking to architects, designers, and often very wealthy homeowners about shades. Love the question, are you having a good hair day? Guys, I've been having a terrible hair day since quarantine started. So I put this picture up to remind me of what I look like on a really good day. I'm also calling into you guys from a 650 square foot apartment with my husband and my dog in the middle of Manhattan. So you can imagine how we're doing here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how we sell shades. As Lutron providers, we have a tendency to rely on the technical capabilities of the solution itself. So if I asked all of you to think about what you talk about when you're telling a client about how you need to have Lutron shades, what do you tell them? I know this is the stuff you tell them, guys. Smooth, quiet operation, right? You talk about intelligent hem bar alignment and how your hem bars are going to line up perfectly the entire time in motion or stationary. You talk about a radio frequency communication with Clear Connect, how it's going to work every single time. And yeah, it's going to work even further away than we promise you it's going to work, right? And you talk about the Lutron warranty and service. So that's awesome. I mean, that's definitely one of the massive differentiators of Lutron. The only thing is, we're leaving some stuff on the table here, because why are we putting in a shade? Well, we're putting in a shade because it protects our home from heat and UV damage, right? It provides room darkening for sleep. It gives us room darkening for watching TV or using our computer screens. I know in the last couple of weeks when I've been home, I'm really glad for my shades because I'm able to adjust pretty easily when the sunlight changes and I'm sitting here at my computer, right? They offer us privacy when we don't want people looking into our houses. So these are all the things we talk about. But to your customer, oftentimes the shade is a beautiful material that enhances the design of their home. And this is true for designers, it's true for architects, and it's true for homeowners. They're really excited. And guys, a lot of the cost of the shade is definitely going to that fabric because we're using premium fabrics here. So we want to make sure that everyone is armed to talk about why our fabrics are great and to be really upfront about the benefits of specific fabrics. So why should you care about this stuff? A lot of times people will tell me, well, the homeowner makes the decision or the designer makes the decision. I don't choose the fabric. I'm not a designer. Good. You shouldn't. You're not. Unless you are, in which case you're a power salesperson, right? You don't have to make recommendations based on style, and I'm not telling you to. But what you have the option to do here, and I encourage you to take advantage of it, is help them make this decision. This is a really stressful process for them because guess what? They don't know what they're doing. So if you can be the expert here, you can help them feel so confident about their choices. You can help them make the right technical choice based on the application, what they're trying to do, and the fabric that they choose. So let's talk about some of that stuff and how we can be really useful, sell more shades, and give the homeowner a really good experience. So, oh my goodness, I took this from the internet and it still has a watermark on it. I put this one up here because it has Dallas and New York on there. I'm calling in from New York. You guys are calling in from Texas, some of you. It's up here because a sign like this tells us that we have lots of different places we can go, right? We're pointing in all these different directions. Well, that's the same place that we're standing when we're talking to a client for the first time about their shading solution. And the reality is they might be thinking that they want a dark colored sheer. They might be thinking that they want a white blackout shade. You can't know, right? And so if you don't ask them, you're probably going to show them the wrong thing. I suggest that you ask this exact question. What were you thinking to do with these windows? That's the question I ask every single time, because what I know is that I don't know what they want. If you ask an open-ended question like that, you give the homeowner an opportunity to describe what they've been imagining. And then you can show them things that fit with what they were thinking of. You can tell them stuff they might not even know yet, like you might notice something about their project and see an opportunity for them to choose a fabric that's more interesting to them, might perform better, and that's all good. But the first thing we want to do as salespeople is make sure that we're hearing what they're asking for. Now, you might get pushback from the homeowner at first. You might think that, well, if they don't tell me what they want, it's because they want me to tell them what they should use. They often do want you to tell them what they should use, but you want to make sure that that you really understand what they're saying, and they're going to use all the wrong words. They are going to call stuff crazy things, and so you just want to make sure that you dig deeper until you fully understand what they're saying. If any of you have been to my full shades classes, we've had this conversation because I have a lot of opinions and I tend to share them pretty quickly. And I recommend that you don't do that. I have gotten myself into uncomfortable situations before. If you think a fabric is ugly, that's okay. It's not your house. You don't have to look at it all the time. Make sure that you're helping the client understand if it's going to function. You say things like, you told me that you want this room to be really dark when you're sleeping. I just want to make sure you realize that this 10% fabric is quite sheer and it's probably not going to make the room really dark while you're sleeping. So classic conflict resolution. If you're married, use this tip at home too. I hear what you're saying. You told me you want this one thing. I see what you chose. It's okay for you to have that, but it's probably not going to accomplish what you told me you wanted. Are you sure that we're on the same page here? So that's a really great way to address it. Now, fabric samples are super important when you're choosing a shade fabric. It is not appropriate for a homeowner to pick, or a designer to pick, a fabric for final order from the website, from just touching the loose sample in the fabric binder. If you're working with a professional who's really experienced with solar screen fabrics and shade fabrics, and they have a binder and they look and they make a decision, that's okay, all right? But if they're a homeowner, we want to make sure they go home with a sample and they have that physical sample to look at for a couple of days, because they often don't realize the implications of certain elements of that fabric. Now, these different collections, these are the 4 collections that we offer in our fabric selection. So there's the honeycombs here, the honeycomb essentials. We've got the Classico collection, the gallery collection, and the atelier collection. And our fabrics are all encompassed in these binders here. If you're selling Lutron shades, you probably have most of these binders. For rollers, you definitely want to make sure you have Classico and gallery. And the Atelier is really beautiful and is a very nice option if you have people who want something really luxurious and fabric-y. Okay, so let's talk about how you conduct a meeting. Now, of course, we're going to have different types of meetings with the client, but let's just talk about the first one where we're sitting down and we're talking to an architect or a designer about what they want for shades, and we're kind of starting out. Some best practices. Okay, first and foremost, discover needs. If you've ever taken a sales course, this is the first thing they tell you about. Because if we don't know what they want, we can't offer them a solution, right? I like to ask clients to walk me through how they plan on using the space. If they live there already, it's really easy. You know, when do you sit in the kitchen? What do you do in this room? What times of day are you in here? What do you notice about the sunlight? Or do you feel that you have enough privacy in that space? Are we looking to add privacy through this shading solution? We might have sneaky things that you never thought about. For example, let's say, oh, we have this bathroom and it gets really humid in there. Well, okay, now we know something. We know that there's a specific issue in one space where we have high humidity. We might want to make a fabric choice, maybe for something that is rated against mildew and mold, because we know about that application. Now, if we talk about safe bets and setting expectations, what do I mean by this? If we were in the room together, I'd make you raise your hands because I'm pretty sure we'd see a lot of hands go up. If you've been selling shades for a while, you've had the conversation with the homeowner where they selected a fabric and you said, great, we're done. And you went to put it in the design tool and you found out that it will not work on all of their windows. We have all had this happen. It's really stressful for the homeowner because by writing down the fabric they chose, we're implicitly telling them that they're good to go and the decision making is over. They feel this sense of relief. And when you go back to them to tell them, I'm so sorry, but this one doesn't work on your windows, they feel lost. They feel upset that all of a sudden they have to do it again. So we always want to make sure that we're setting expectations up front that not every single fabric is going to work every single time. Now, there are some safe bets, I call them. So anyone in here, if you have a go-to fabric, pop it into the chat. I want to see which ones you guys use as a standard on your quote. I have my own personal list of fabrics that I like to use if I'm just what I'll call ballparking or doing a budgetary price quote, and I'll choose a fabric that's really flexible. And what I mean by that is it's railroadable, seamable, looks good, comes in wide widths. Oftentimes, guys, the fabrics you guys are gonna write in here are fiberglass core fabrics. I see them coming up, E-Screen, Basket Weave 90, Basket Weave 27. They're really good options. They're middle of the road price-wise. They are really flexible and we can move them around. Oh, I see some interesting ones. We have Paladin Hue coming in. Premier is a nice option. So you guys get to know which ones are your go-tos. You get a really good response from the customer. You know it's gonna work for the budget. It's gonna keep us flexible. So it's really great to have your go-to options. I will tell you the #1 go-to option that we see across the US is Basket Weave E-Screen. Why? Well, first of all, it comes in a pretty white color that people like because most people choose white and most people choose E-Screen. Isn't that really funny? The #1 fabric that we sell is Basket Weave E-Screen in white. Because people like to see the fun colors, but they're actually kind of boring and they really actually want to buy something basic, which is totally okay. Oh, someone just said in Southern Texas, no one buys white. Well, you guys have a lot of sun down there. So a dark fabric is a really nice fit when you have a lot of sun. Now, here's a benefit about eScreen that is unrelated to color. eScreen, if you look up close at eScreen, you'll be able to see the warp and the weft. And we'll talk more about this in a minute, but those are the vertical and horizontal strands. It's symmetrical. eScreen has 2 vertical for every 2 horizontal. So what the end effect of that is that when you look through it, it completely disappears, just like a bug screen. It doesn't really provide any visual interest. It's basically like tinting for your windows. So eScreen is a really good bet. Basket 90 is a really good bet. If we have a project where we have a bigger budget and we know that we might want to set expectations going top of the line, something from the Atelier collection like Boucle is a good choice. If we have a lower budget and we know that the homeowner is stretching, we might want to go with something like Palette or Hue or something like Sheer Light, which is a little bit more on the affordable end. Now I put this down here in all caps to drive it home. Never just give the client the binder, okay? If you just give the client the binder, they're going to feel so overwhelmed. It's too much. It's too scary. They don't know what to do. They're just gonna quit. They're gonna shut down. So you wanna make sure that that first meeting, you're guiding them through and you're showing them where stuff is in here. And if you take 15 minutes with these binders and sit down, you will also know where everything is in these binders. So they might say, you might show them eScreen, top runner, think they're gonna like it, and they say, oh, it feels so sterile. It feels like a hospital. It feels like an office. They might say that to you. Well, thank God you're there to hear that feedback, right? Because now you can say, okay, I think I know what you might like. Let me show you Boucle. Let me show you Bistre. Let me pull out these fabrics that feel more fabric-y, that are going to get you excited. And I'm so glad I'm here sitting with you, hearing you say that, because now I have the opportunity to give you what you want, right? So after the meeting, what do you need to make sure to do? First of all, when we leave that meeting, we want to make sure that we're setting the expectation that we're going to go back and check. So they might have 2 or 3 options that they like. Okay, great. You like Basket eScreen and you like Basket 90. Let me go home. Let me spend some time with the programming tool for this and the software tool and make sure that these are going to work great for your project. Okay. I'm always going to run it through the tool just to make sure it works. That's the way that I make sure that I don't let this client think that we're all good to go until I've checked. I'm also going to order fabric samples for my clients. Why am I doing this? Because I need them to live with it. I need them to look at it over multiple times a day. I need them to see it at night. And if I just give them the binder, they're not going to do that. They're not going to take that fabric out and hold it up at different times of day. I want to make sure they have that sample. Now, another perk of them having that fabric sample, we offer fabric samples for free, okay? You can order them from Lutron Fabrics-Become and they will ship to your customer. It costs nobody except for Lutron money. All right. And we do it because we know that the client gets connected to the fabric. They get excited about the fabric when they physically have it in their hand. They're going to put it in their folder with their carpet samples and their wallpaper sample, and it's going to become part of the design. So we allow them to form this emotional connection and not go with somebody else. Now, let's talk a little bit. And guys, if you have questions, don't forget, go ahead and pop them in. Let's talk a little bit about specifying roller fabrics, because most of the shades that we sell at Lutron are roller shades. And Bella McCoy has advised me that most of the shades you guys sell are roller shades. That's pretty true across the board. And if you guys are selling other stuff, feel free to ping me afterwards and we will talk specifically about other shade styles that your customers are interested in. Okay, what's a roller fabric? Lutron does a ton of work to make sure that we're bringing you the best fabrics. We don't make the fabrics. You don't want Lutron making fabrics. That's not our bag. We buy our fabrics from fabric mills. And fabric mills all over the world. We work with the best ones. We make sure our supply chain is strong. We make sure that we're working with companies with strong engineering divisions because we actually stress out our suppliers. We are their pickiest customer. We often, when a fabric mill has an issue with their production process, which happens, it happens to everyone, oftentimes we're the ones telling them about it because we'll get that fabric and we are so particular about the fabrics that we receive. They need to be good because we can't afford to spend time waiting for new shipments or dealing with any issues in the fabric. So what you see here is fabric rolled out on a cutting table. One of the things that's really important to us is that when the fabric rolls out, it can't be curling or have wrinkles because that will show up and will look pretty ugly on a shade. And we make really big shades and that's where you see those issues. On the right-hand side, this is a tiny portion of our fabric storage. You see these tubes, these cylindrical tubes here are actually holding fabric rolls. They go inside the tubes, which are round, obviously, like the shape of the roll, to make sure that they don't get any creases. Because we'll tell you this, if you order a shade from us and you're gonna take a while before you install it, we don't want you to leave it in the box. It's gonna get a flat spot. And that flat spot is gonna show up every 3 inches or so when it rolls down. You're not gonna like it, we're not gonna like it. So we keep all of these fabrics in tubes so that they hold their shape. Now, we source these fabrics. We have a giant collection, over 1,000 fabric options that we bring to you guys. We do customer's own material. That's also fine. If your client has a roller shade fabric that they love and they really want to use, if it's meant to be a roller shade, we could probably make it into a roller shade. What is not a roller fabric? So if anyone doesn't know who these people are, you got to get on the Netflix, okay? Get yourself some Tiger King. If this fabric could be made into a shirt that Joe Exotic or Carol Baskin would wear, it's not meant to be a roller shade, okay? If it's got sparkles, we can't make it into a roller shade. If it's silky, we can't make it into a roller shade. Roller shade fabrics are kind of stiff. They're not very flexible. They don't feel great when you touch them. That's how they're supposed to be, okay? Now, setting expectations. Not all fabrics will work for your application. I promise you, if you don't set this expectation up front, the homeowner is going to choose a fabric that they can't use. It happens every single time. And there are a bazillion reasons that the fabric might not work. We might be limited by roll-up diameter because we have a set pocket size. The fabric might not come wide enough, especially those really pretty ones. They tend to come in smaller roll widths. It might not be able to railroad or seam. So set those expectations up front. And usually the problem shade is your largest window size. So a good bet, if you have a client who's really pushing you during the meeting, hey, but I want to know if this one's going to work. First of all, you can do my projects on your cell phone if you need to. It's not the world's best user interface, but it's an option. The other thing is, let's hunt out the largest window in here. That's usually the problem. Now there's one other size that's a problem. Does anyone know which window dimension? It's more of a proportion that runs into an issue often. If you know it, type it in the chat. Tall and skinny. Tall and skinny is the answer, guys. A tall and skinny shade, the taller shade is, the more it telescopes. And that means wiggles back and forth. And that's okay. It's going to travel a little bit no matter what. That's why we have light gaps to make sure that that fabric can go back and forth. Now, when we have a really tall window and a really skinny window, it travels a lot. So what you'll find is that we might run into a situation, Lutron will call it aspect ratio. It'll say, can't do this because of the aspect ratio. Good job. Okay, where are we going to get this information? I hope you guys recognize this. This is literally a photo of the Lutron Classico binder. And you guys can use this while you're sitting there with the client. Flip up the card. Take a look at this it's a laminated paper card inside your fabric binder booklet. It's going to tell you all the information you need to know. So if you wanted to do it this way, you totally can. This is the old school way. I prefer to drop it into my projects because I find it faster and easier than looking up all this information on every single one, but it's there. So if you're in the meeting and the client is telling you that they have a specific window size, I can actually look live and figure this out. Now, if you're working with a designer or an architect, teach them how to use this tool on your own, because then they are not going to be calling you. You don't want them calling you every time to ask about the roll width. Enable them to specify this on their own. We have a question about the tall and skinny windows. It's going to come down to what fabric you choose. So the nice thing about my projects, when you build your shade dimensions in my projects, it will rule out the fabrics that aren't going to work. So instead of showing you 1,000 fabrics, it will only show you 400 fabrics. And it will help you figure that out in advance. That's a very complicated engineering math that goes on behind the scenes, where it's actually looking at what that material is made of. And we have a lot of other metrics in there that we don't print on the card because they wouldn't really be interesting to homeowners or our dealers, but it allows my projects to do the math on whether or not a certain fabric is going to work on a certain shade. And at some point, we're going to be hosting a My Projects webinar. So I will show you guys how all of this works when we go through that. And if you play with it on your own, put in a tall and skinny window and see how that fabric selection decreases. It's a very smart tool. Okay, let's talk about railroading and how it relates to setting expectations with the customers. People do all sorts of crazy stuff with fabric samples. You give them this loose fabric sample and they do really weird things. They hold it sideways, they're turning stuff around. If it's East green and white, who cares, right? Because it's 2 strands up and down, 2 strands to the left and right, and it's the same color. So it doesn't really matter when you railroad it. But if you have strands of different colors, or if there's any texture in that fabric, railroading it is going to completely change the look. I've seen this become an issue with fabrics. Like, we used to have a fabric that I talk to people all the time about called Ream. It had a raw silk sort of texture, really gorgeous. Definitely had this horizontal emphasis, and people would get confused about, you know, they really wanted to use it as a vertical emphasis. Well, fine, but we have to railroad it. And if we don't have that conversation, then they're disappointed when it shows up on site. So for every single fabric on that fabric card, if I go back and show you the fabric card, basket weave 90, is it railroadable? Yes, great. So in the meeting, I can tell the client, oh, you want the stripes to go the other way? No problem, I can railroad this for you. Now, these words are here because when you're working with a homeowner and a designer, the more sophisticated you can sound, the better off you're going to be in the sales process. So use the lingo that they know, and that would be warp and weft. These vertical strands are called warp, and the horizontal strands are called weft. I remember that because weft is left to right. That's a design word. Like, you'll see upholstery places call themselves warp and weft. It's fun lingo that they know about, and it's going to give a signal to them that you're speaking their language, right? When you can use the terminology that professionals use in the industry, you sound really educated, and they're going to have confidence in you. Now, new construction, people are building bigger windows, taller, wider, all the dimensions. And we want to do one shade, right? Everyone wants one shade. So if we want one shade, a lot of times what we need to do is have a seam, okay? Seams are totally okay as long as we set expectations. We want to line that seam up with a mullion, and we want to make sure that the client sees it. So we have this seam sample, and you guys can order those from us. It's like $15 for the seam sample. I recommend you make sure you have one. For, you know, in your area, if windows are big, make sure you have one of these to tell the client what the scene is going to look like. They are always cool with it when you talk about it in advance and you talk about where it's going to go, but they will totally panic if they find out when it gets installed on site. And if you need photos like this, reach out to us. We'll get you these photos that we use here. Okay, another big thing that's going to show up in real life, you'll get an alert in my projects, is about waves and V's. So if you take a look in this picture right here, you can see some waves and V's. It's these little wrinkles that perpetuate down. This is totally normal, okay? This is going to happen on big shades. It doesn't matter whose shade you buy. What happens is that we have a tube at the top, and that tube is held on the right side and the left side, and it deflects a little bit, and that's okay. But that deflection causes this wrinkle to perpetuate down, and it's not really a big deal, okay? If you know that in advance, it's not a big deal. People are okay with it. I've got it on my shade in my bedroom. It's totally fine. Doesn't bother me at all. I don't think my husband even knows about it. But we want to set expectations. Where are we going to see it? Shades that are bigger than 10 feet. And it's going to look way worse if we are washing this shade with light. So make sure that the lighting in the room works and isn't highlighting texture on the shade. Designers love to put strip lighting into the shade pockets these days. Don't let that happen if you can at all avoid it. So how can we talk the client through this situation? We want to have the conversation. We want them to be comfortable with their choice. We tell them the options are, look, what do you want? You tell me what you want. Here are your choices. We have a giant shade and we know that it's going to have some waves and V's. Maybe that's okay. Is it a bedroom? Because this might give us fewer light gaps. I'd rather have one giant shade in my bedroom, even if it has waves and V's, than have two smaller shades and have a big light gap in the middle. Or if it's a sheer shade, maybe I would rather have more smaller shades than have waves and V's. And guys, if I have more smaller shades, but I don't want to spend more money, what's a good option I should probably think about? Getting close in cost, but having two separate shade panels. Coupled, great job, yes. Coupling the shades. It costs less because it's the same amount of fabric as the big shade. It's the same number of drives as the big shade. So it costs way less than having two full shades. And that coupler just physically connects the first one to the second one. Good suggestion. All right, now openness factor. This might seem really obvious to you guys because you're used to talking the Lutron language, you're used to looking at our fabric specs, but you have got to walk the homeowner through this painfully slowly because they are not going to digest it. Openness factor is a percentage that describes how much of that fabric is open or how much of it is holes. That's not a very sophisticated way to say it, but I've found that homeowners can understand that. So on the left-hand side here, I have a 0% openness. My fabric is letting no light through at all. It's like if I put a wall there, right? Now, as I move up, my percentage gets higher, more light is coming through. That middle one right there, that might be a 3%. 3%, that's a pretty low percentage, but a lot of light comes through. And then the most sheer I'm gonna see on a regular solar fabric is about 10%. On a really decorative fabric, I might be talking more like 12 or 15 or even 20 on the ones that are super sheer. We don't sell a lot of those because honestly, they're not very useful for all of the reasons that most people put in shades, like sun protection, privacy. You know, with a 20% openness fabric, you're not getting too much protection and you're getting zero privacy. So we just want to walk the client through this and make sure that they understand. Even designers don't know what these percentages mean. So I've had designers who I've started this conversation and they'll say, well, oh, yes, yes. Well, I want a 50% openness. Okay, that's not a shade. I don't even know what that is. That's useless. We don't make that. Nobody makes that. So all of a sudden, I have to go back to basics and reframe what the scale is. Like I'm saying, how open do you want it on a scale of 0 to 10? That's the range. Those are your options. So make sure that you have that conversation with them. Even though sometimes it feels like we're offering too much information to them up front, it stops them from saying something that makes them feel silly later. And when the customer feels silly, that's never good. Now, a big expectation setting topic with fabrics is blackouts versus room darkening. So even if the fabric is blackout, it doesn't mean that the room's going to be blackout. This is a huge misconception that homeowners have all the time. If you ask them, well, how did you think this would work? Like, don't you find that light comes under the crack of your door? Don't you find that, obviously if it doesn't go all the way to the edges, of course light's going to come around? Yes. Once you phrase it to them that way of, well, I guess so, I guess so, but you said blackout. So let's be really careful about using the word blackout with the customer and setting really good expectations about what blackout fabric means for how it's going to look in their space. And this picture right here is available on Lutron Fabrics-Become. Go ahead there, show your clients this photo so that they can understand what it means. Now, obviously, what are our options if they want a blackout application? What do we need to add in here if my client wants to feel like they're sleeping in a basement? Side panels, excellent, A+. We need side panels. We might need the mustache hem bar, which we call 1-inch exposed. It's got that wool pile at the bottom. I might want curtain panels. That's a great idea. I can use curtain panels to cut out a lot of that light without even having to have a contractor in, right? Really easy to tell them, get some stationary drapery panels. I might need a sill angle at the bottom. Light is like water. If there's a way, it's coming through. So we want to do 1,000 times the work to get a blackout application. Yeah, curtain panels would be really nice here and would provide some softness. So sometimes you can help them find a solution and it's not even your job to do it, which is a win-win, right? Okay, here's the other expectation to set. What you see out during the day is what people will see in at night. Nobody gets this. They think this is a magical fabric that's going to give you magical privacy, and also they're going to be able to see out. That's not how it works, okay? So make sure that they realize this. Privacy is so subjective. People have crazy feelings about privacy. I've told you guys I live in New York. I can see into my neighbor's windows at any time of day because people just don't put their shades down here. They do in their bedrooms, because they want to be able to sleep and not wake up with the sun. But other than that, no one really cares. I mean, what's privacy? Who cares? If you travel outside of the city, and even in the city, it's personal, but some people really care. They really feel like they need privacy. They might even want a blackout fabric to make sure that they get privacy. A translucent can also be a good fit. This is just a nice visual. Now, in the book, you can use this to help start the openness conversation. So what you see is, this is again, that picture of the card that's literally in your fabric book. And we see openness factor here. There's a little asterisk next to 3%. What that means is my fabric sample that's in that book is a 3% fabric sample. So I can actually hold that thing up. It's kind of awkward, but hold that fabric up, have the client look through it and say, this is the 3% openness. I can give you a denser option, 1% for more privacy, more protection, or we can go sheer, or we can go up to a 10% for a lot more view and a lot more light to come in. What do you think of this one? Do you like the 3% or do you want to go in one direction or the other? So that's a really helpful element of what's in this book. Now, we always want to make sure, and this is one of those attention to detail things, we got to get deep into the details when we're talking about windows. We have to know what else is going on. Just like we need to know if there's side channels because we need to be able to tell them if they can get blackout or not. We need to know, do you have a bug screen? Now, I will tell you on my trips to Texas, I have been very startled by the bugs that live in Texas. You've got crickets that apparently invade the town periodically. Okay, that was new to me. Saw that in Austin. Bees all up the wazoo in Dallas. So I don't know. You guys got a lot of bugs. I don't know if your clients all have bug screens, but if there's bug screens, we want to make sure that we talk about what that sheer fabric looks like over a bug screen. And even if they tell you in the moment, you say, are you guys doing bug screens? And they say no, make sure you tell them why we asked that question. Well, I asked that question because just so you know, when we put a solar screen on top of a bug screen, it can create this funky, wiggly, psychedelic effect that's not great. So if you change your mind on that, you got to let me know, okay? Make sure they realize why this is serious. Now, let's talk about color for a second. I wrote the client may not know what they want. When James and I were talking earlier today, he pointed out that the client does not know what they want. Very true. The client does not know what they want. They might know what they want accomplished, but they certainly don't know how to get there. They have no clue about how color or openness factor or all of this stuff is going to create their dream home, okay? So one of the really important things you can do is help them feel comfortable with their decision. That's always been my favorite part of selling shades and talking about shade fabrics is when the homeowner says to me, wow, thank you so much. I was really stressed out about making this decision and I'm really happy with what we chose. That for me makes it all worth it because you took something that was driving someone crazy, keeping them up at night, and they've left and they feel so good about their choice and they feel happy about their purchase. So let's keep this in mind when we talk to them, especially about color. Let's start with light fabrics. Like I told you, in the US, most people buy white. Maybe in Texas, where you guys have more sun, more people are looking for dark fabrics. That's probably a really good fit for your area. So light fabrics reflect light and heat, which is helpful, kicks that heat back outside. But just like it kicks heat and light back out the window, your light inside of your room is also going to bounce off of that shade and it's going to create glare. It's also going to be harder to see through. And from outside, you will be able to see where that shade is. So some places you will have to use a white backed fabric because the HOA requires you to for consistency. In some places, they won't let you use a white backed fabric. We're seeing in large residential towers now in major cities, they're saying you can only use a dark backed fabric because of this fact that you can see it from outside if it's white. Dark fabrics absorb light and heat. They reduce the glare and preserve the view, but they are going to feel warm to the touch when you put your hand on them, okay? Now from outside, it's really hard to tell if your black shade is up or down. So that could be a big benefit. I want to show you a picture here. This is of our facility in New York City. You can see from left to right, 10%, 5%, 3%, 1%. And this is the same fabric in each picture, just in a different color. This is basket weave 27. On the left-hand side, it's an oyster charcoal, and on the right-hand side, it's an oyster oyster. Now, one of the reasons we use this fabric here is because it is white backed. It's a twill fabric. So no matter what, the back is going to look white. Our neighbors across the street probably have no clue which set of shades we have down at any time. They are probably wondering why we just put the same shades up and down constantly. Now, I have at the bottom here, there's no morality in fabric color options. I put this here because we get so excited to tell clients about the benefit of a dark fabric. Like, hey, listen up though, you're gonna get a great view. It's gonna cut down on glare. It's gonna be great, it's just gonna disappear. It's like tinting your windows. We get so excited that sometimes our clients feel bad if they prefer the white fabric. I have heard so many times, I'm sorry, I know the black fabric is better, but I think we just like the white more. Just to be clear, there is no better, okay? What's better is what you like. And we're just here to help you make the right choice The choice is up to you. We're here to give you all the information so you can make the choice that's right for you, right? We want to keep that in mind when we're talking to these people. Okay. In the course of your conversations with the client, while they're specifying fabrics, it's really important that you narrow down the options for them. Excuse me. I put this picture here because this is my personal struggle. I go to the grocery store to buy jam, and there are too many choices. I get paralyzed. Like, I know I need jam, but I can't decide what I want. And so I'm having a meltdown, and I'm just not going to buy jam. I'm just going to leave. I'm going to leave the store. I've been told before that not everyone has this personal jam struggle. I've been told that beer might be more relatable to some people, so that's fine. We'll talk about it in terms of beer. If I have 100 beer options, I'm going to have a hard time maybe choosing. There's too many options. I want to try them all. I'm overwhelmed. If I'm only given 2 choices, I know right away what I want. It's really easy to choose between 2 or 3 options. So help make it simple for the client. Listen to their needs, choose a couple top hits and say, here are 4 I think you might like. What do you think? Which one do you like? So let's revisit this slide. Now that we've talked about a lot of the stuff that we need to think about in our first couple meetings, discover the needs. What do they need? What are their needs? Do they need privacy? Do they need visibility of screens? Do they need protection from intense sun? Do they care about heat? Are they worried about UV? We know our safe bet options. We know our good choices to go in with those fiberglass core fabrics like Basket 27, Basket E-Screen. They tend to be recyclable, seamable. They tend to come in wide widths. These are really great options. And we know to never give the client the binder. If this is all you learned today, I consider it a huge success. Okay, now LutronFabrics.com is a really great place to go in order to find out some of this stuff. And the one big thing I want to show you guys on LutronFabrics.com is how to order fabric samples. So if I go to my browser, if you guys can't see this, let me know. I think you should be able to see my screen. LutronFabrics.com. Now, you can see I haven't logged in yet today because it doesn't say my name. That's okay. I just pop in here, put in my name, and this is my Lutron account number. I can also make a login. If I'm an architect, I can come in here, make a login. I just need to say my name and my email address, and then I'm good to go. So, hi, Kathryn. It knows it's me. That's great. Let's say I know my client needs, and I can do this while I'm sitting with the client. There's no secret information on here. There's no pricing. We have price tiers, but it's not going to tell them what you buy anything at or any of that. So let's say I'm with the client, and I know that they want a roller, and I know that they want it to be white or off-white, and I know that they want it to be blackout because, you know, maybe they told me, well, I don't need it to have side channels, but I definitely don't want fabric coming through. And maybe I need the max usable width to be kind of big. My window is kind of big. Let me search. So now it has pulled up all of these fabric options that are going to work for me. This is so easy, right? I don't need to go ahead and poke through every single fabric binder and look at all the dimensions. It's doing this for me. So now that I have this in here, let's look at this new fabric, Stratus, that we have. Really pretty. Honestly, kind of hard to tell in that color. I'll show you guys an oyster. Beautiful textural, people love it. If I open the details tab, I can see some facts on here. It's got a white backing. Look how wide this thing goes. It's a great choice. So I'm going to add it to my cart. Fabric has been added to your sample cart. Did you see that, guys? All I did was click on this shopping cart up here. So that's great. Now I have it in my cart. If I go to my shopping cart, I can see I added this sample. Let me view my cart. All I need to do is fill out my information on where I want it to send, and samples of Lutron fabrics will ship within 2 business days. All right, it's free. It's free to you. It's free to them. It is very much not free to us, but we think that this is the way that you need to do it if you're going to sell stuff. because this is a way for clients to be happy with their purchase. So a fabric sample leads to a satisfied customer. All right, let's hop back into this. LutronFabrics.com. Everyone should sign up. Take those samples, get those samples, order them for free, ship them directly to the customer, or order them for yourself. That's okay too. I often would order fabric samples to myself, to the office. I would just earmark them for which customer I ordered them for. They would come, and then I would put them together in like a really nice little package with a pretty paper clip. I get like the golden binder clips from Target because they just look really nice. Write a little note, you know, hey Stacy, these are the fabrics I thought you would like. Definitely hang them up in the window, see what you think, and clip it on there and send it over to them. Now, if I have suction cups, I can tell you suction cups are super cheap, guys. You can buy them. There's this website called Uline that I order suction cups from. They are basically free, and it's great. You punch a hole in the fabrics and hang them up in the window. And now the client gets to see it in real life. They look at it for a while because they just leave it up there. They can go outside and look through it at night, see how they feel about it. So it really is a good experience for them, and it gets them really connected to it. Like I said, they think, oh, how pretty, like look how beautiful the trees look when I'm looking through this dark fabric that I chose. Is there a way to enter a client name on a saved address? You would just write their name in the ship to box. So I know if I go to LutronFabrics.com, I actually didn't click the drop down because I have ordered samples to my own house often, and so my personal address shows up. If I type in ship to Kathryn Chiarelli, it will put my home address into that box. It will autofill it for me. So if you've sent fabrics to somebody before, it will autofill it for you. You know, let's say you're sending it to Stacy Smith, you type in Stacy Smith, and it will autofill that box for you if you've sent it to them in the past. Oftentimes, if I want to order fabrics for Stacy Smith, but I want them to come to my house, I will type in send them to Stacy Smith, but mail it to my address. So then when I receive it, I know it's my package for Stacy that I was working on. If you want stuff expedited, call into customer service. They can sometimes expedite the shipping for you and get you these samples overnight. We absolutely can do faster shipping than what's on LutronFabrics.com. And I've been that person periodically, like, whoops, I really need to get a sample to these people ASAP. Can you guys get it out before the end of the day? And a lot of times they can. So the standard samples are 5 by 10. They're literally the exact shape of what you see in your Classico binder. If you need bigger samples, you can do that too. Now, this is again the jam beer situation. We don't want to order the client 8 giant samples because they're kind of unwieldy. You know they're not hanging up 8 of them, okay? Quote them through my projects. Charge them if you need to. They're not that expensive. They're maybe 30 bucks, but I think it's helpful to just make sure that they don't go crazy and just have these giant samples that you're totally stuck with. So we have a question about ordering fabrics expedited. If you want to order fabric expedited, I don't think you really need to worry about placing it on LutronFabrics.com. Just call into customer service about the samples that you want sent, and they can place the order more quickly without needing to refer to your Lutron Fabrics order. Okay, remove the urgency whenever possible. This is a really important thing to do with clients. I consider this a personal skill of my own, that I work on bringing clients down from 100 to 5. That's definitely something to cultivate and nurture in yourself, the ability to bring everyone down a notch. So a lot of times I'll come into a meeting and they may have brought me in, let's say in our showroom in New York, they'll say, Kathryn, can you come over here and just join this conversation for a minute? And it's a dealer and the homeowner and maybe a designer, and everyone's tension is high. They're stressed, their shoulders are at their ears. The first thing we want to do is bring everybody down. It's okay. This is not urgent. We're going to figure it out. We're going to find something that you like. We're going to get it for you in the timeline that you need, okay? And so let's think about that in every sense of this process. We don't want this to be urgent. This should be fun. This is a luxury purchase. This is something that's going to make them so happy every day. They're going to look at that shade and be like, yeah, that was a great purchase. I love that thing. So let's start out the process that way. When we're in a time crunch, which we know happens all the time, what are our options? We might be able to rush it. We might be able to rush production. We might be able to ship it super fast on a plane from our factory to your facility. But do we really need to do that? We get all scrambled up about this and we're like, oh, can I do it faster? Can you do it faster? Can we get everything faster? Why do they need it? A lot of times, all that they're worried about is their privacy right now. It's not that they're stressed out about you coming back or, no, we have to be done with the job. They're worried because they haven't been sleeping well because the sun's waking them up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So here's a solution. We're going to come in, we're going to put up these temporary shades, and we're going to take that off the table completely. We're going to remove that stress entirely. So I recommend that you start with that because think of this as the bread basket. You know, when you sit down at the restaurant and you're starving, everyone's starving and everyone's cranky and you're tapping your nails, when's my food coming? And they bring over the bread basket. What happens? Oh my gosh, all of a sudden we're having a good time. We have our drinks, we're eating bread. We're not hangry anymore. It took the edge off, right? So temporary shades take the edge off. Offer them right up front. Hey, you know what? While we're here, I'm so glad we just made these choices. I'm going to place this order. In the meantime, how about I just stick some temporary shades in the bedroom so you guys, you know, get a good night's sleep while we wait for these shades to come up. Think of it that way. Okay, and we got our order in the system. So throughout this whole process, we want to make sure we're setting expectations. We want to make sure we're starting with a safe bet of one of those basket weave E-screen, basket weave 27, basket weave 90. Help walk the client through the process and make it fun. It's a fun thing. It can be enjoyable. Now, quickly, just to tell you guys the personalities of our different fabric finders, because helping this process go well kind of requires you to know about the fabrics, right? So learn your way around the different binders. The Classico binder is your go-to standard. Your safe bets, they're in Classico. This is where you find your basic, boring solar screens. And guess what? That's what people like. So get comfy with this binder. We've got Gallery. Gallery is more fun. We have the funky stuff in here. Any weirdly colorful stuff is going to be in Gallery for sure. No one buys it, but they like to look at it. The fabrics are textural, and a lot of really good translucent options. So palette is in here. So hue is in here. We have really good choices in the Gallery binder. Then you have Atelier. Atelier is gorgeous, okay? This collection, there's something special about it, which is that for every sheer that's in here, there's a matching blackout. When you have a client who's totally obsessed with their fabrics all matching from room to room, this is a really good place to steer them because we have all the same fabric families with all the same colorways, and they come in sheer and blackout for each one. It's a really good choice. And the roll widths are pretty wide. So I know there are a lot of windows that are bigger than 108 inches, but on many regular homes, 108 is going to be totally fine. You're going to be able to cover most windows in the home with this collection. So in closing, we went a tiny bit over. Sorry, guys, 2 minutes. Always start with the big picture question. What were you imagining these shades would look like? And think of this like a really fun journey that you're taking the customer on. And you want to just start out by finding out what they're thinking. Like, where are you at? Let me figure out where you're at so I know what to talk to you about. And I recommend literally asking this question every time you start talking about shades. They're going to tell you. You sit and listen, you learn so much, and all of a sudden you go from not really knowing how to be successful with them to having all the answers. So here's your starting point. What were you imagining these shades would look like? Now, that's all I have for you guys today. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the engagement and the questions. Thanks for spending an hour with me. And good luck, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Kathryn. We're gonna end this, but like I said, I put in the chat that we're gonna post this on we have a Bell McCoy University. It's bellmccoyuniversity.com. And so we'll have the recording of this webinar there for you guys to be able to download and then also watch it anytime. So thank you.